Israel's political earthquake.
Indeed, I'm here to announce my resignation from the role of the defense minister of the State of Israel.
Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Liberman throws in the towel one day after a ceasefire is reached with Hamas. Can Benjamin Netanyahu keep his coalition together, or is Israel headed towards early elections? I'll break it all down with Israeli lawmakers Ksenia Svetlova and Nachman Shai from the Zionist Union, Likud spokesperson Hazan, and Jewish Home member Jeremy Saltan, and an Israeli minister who just can't wait for the Trump peace plan.
It's about time, because we are anxiously expecting this deal of the century.
I go one-on-one with Minister for Regional Cooperation, Tzachi Hanegbi, who also has some hopes for the Palestinians' mental state.
What we prefer is for the Palestinians to be sane again.
And could Britain move its embassy to Jerusalem?
Let's just go through in detail the arguments against moving the embassy to Jerusalem. That'll do.
Top Tory politicians, Lord Eric Pickles and Lord Stuart Pollack, share their thoughts on the UK's Mideast policy, anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and if Brexit will actually happen. We'll tackle all these stories head-on and expose the spin right here on The Spin Room.
From the i24 News Studios at the Port of Jaffa in Tel Aviv is host Ami Kaufman.
Thanks for joining us. We begin our show with the drama rocking Israeli politics, the resignation of Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman one day after Israel and Hamas reached a ceasefire deal that he saw as surrendering to terror. What mark did he leave in his 28 months in office? Can Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu withstand the pressure on his coalition, or is Israel headed towards early elections? I'll answer these questions with my all-star panel. Here in studio, two Israeli lawmakers from the opposition, Ksenia Svetlova and Nachman Shai of the Zionist Union Party, Foreign Affairs Director for the ruling Likud Party, Hazan, and Anglo Forum Chairman of the Jewish Home Party, Jeremy Saltan. It is good to see all of you. Thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Ellie, since you're representing the ruling Likud Party, I actually want to start with you. It seems the Prime Minister is in dire straits. The backlash for him reaching a deal with Hamas is very fierce. The public is frustrated. Top Minister resigns, saying that the Likud is surrendering to terror. And with Hamas celebrating in the streets while Israelis are protesting in southern Israel, it's hard to argue otherwise.
I'll try to quote David Ben-Gurion, which once said that I don't give the people what they want, I give the people what they need. And I believe, although I do not fully agree with the Prime Minister, that he did something that is quite true is the best for the State of Israel. Don't forget that his considerations, the considerations that he's seen, is completely different than the things that we've seen. And therefore, we continue on.
Ksenia, will you give the Prime Minister some credit for avoiding another war and loss of life?
We absolutely do not want another war. However, the Prime Minister lacks basic understanding of what he wants to do next. If we will go into another escalation in 1 month, in 2 months, maybe even tomorrow, Friday, and Hamas is already picking thousands of people to celebrate next to the security barrier.
Nachman, would you give the Prime Minister any credit?
Yes, I will. Just for this decision, I support it, fully support it.
Right.
But at the same time, as my colleague said, where are we going from here? I don't see any strategic plan. I see only one step here, one step there. Doesn't make sense. And we actually, Israelis, do not know where the government is heading and where the government is leading the people of Israel.
How should Israel have responded, Jeremy?
Well, I do not think Israel should have responded the way that Defense Minister, or I should say outgoing Defense Minister Avigdor, 48 hours, Liberman, told us that we should act. Look, this is a time to show some responsibility. I really don't understand what Lieberman's resignation is supposed to be, other than trying to get a few extra seats, trying to outflank the government from the right. I'm very disappointed by Lieberman's decision here.
We have to go for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, more with my guests on this dramatic week here in Israel and where we could be heading. Stay with us. We're back on the spinner with my guests, Ksenia Svetlova, Nachman Shai, Hazan, and Jeremy Saltan, still discussing the resignation that has rocked Israeli politics of Avigdor Lieberman leaving his post as defense minister. I want to start with showing you something that another minister in the government said today. Tzachi Hanegbi, Minister for Regional Cooperation, made quite an uproar. He said that Hamas's response was minor. There is a difference between Tel Aviv and other communities, and because of the uproar, later on, about a few hours later, he said, I've never made a distinction between the lives of residents in the border area and the lives of the residents of Tel Aviv. And if this is what my comments were taken to mean, I regret that. I'll start with you, Ksenia. What do you make of these comments and the apology?
First of all, he is not the first one in Likud to speak in this way. It was David Bitan this summer who said that there is definitely a big difference between Otef Aza and between Tel Aviv.
Otef Aza meaning the communities that surround the Gaza Strip.
Yes, exactly. So, what we take from this, it's the disrespect for human lives, which we didn't actually need Tzachi Hanegbi to, come in the open and to say it, because we saw from the reactions of the IDF, basically from the political echelon that decided not to react to, 470 rockets. Are you serious, guys?
Eli?
Ms. Svetlova belongs to the opposition, and therefore she will behave as an oppositioner. You have to understand one thing.
Something about the
No doubt about it. What Hanegbi and Bitan have meant is to say that there is a difference economically if Tel Aviv is going to be completely shut down and the south. That was the first intention, and Tzachi Hanegbi made it clear, I believe, and that's it.
Eli speaks on behalf of the coalition that will soon be an opposition. I'm looking forward to hear him next time in the studio, if you invite both of us.
Of course.
And he will attack the government anyway, in any way he can, because he will criticize us for neglecting the South and so on and so forth. So let's put things in the right way. Every rocket that which crosses the border, wherever it lands, hits the land of Israel, and it's an attack against Israel, and Israel has to respond. Never mind where it is. Tzachi made a terrible mistake this morning. And the reason and the best answer is that the Prime Minister invited immediately all the heads of the regional councils from the south to come to his office, and he meets them tonight in order to apologize.
There might be some that would argue, Nachman, that if you, the left, was in government and there were rockets being thrown over to Israel, you also, if rockets did not hit Tel Aviv or if they did not hit Jerusalem, let's put the political correctness aside a second, would not have reacted so severely.
Any attack on Israel is an attack on Israel. Doesn't matter where it takes place.
I want to know Jeremy weigh in.
I'd love to weigh on this. First of all, Nachman has a lot of optimism if he thinks that he's going to be in the coalition, but he's allowed to, and that's great. It's definitely a Jewish trait, and I appreciate that. But I have to correct you that Tzachi is not talking for the coalition in this regard. There is no difference between there's no difference between Sderot and Tel Aviv or Eilat or Kiryat Shmona.
But he's a minister in the Israeli government. What he said,
there are a lot of ministers.
The IDF reactions don't show that.
I'm very happy to go and point out here that what we do need is a new defense minister, and I think that defense minister.
Was Lieberman not a good defense minister?
Maybe we need a new prime minister.
I do not think that Avigdor Lieberman was a good defense minister. I think the defense minister that we need right now is Naftali Bennett.
Jeremy, Lieberman signed off on tenders for 6,363 settlement homes, the most by any defense minister during such a time span.
When you're going ahead,
that's not good for you.
When you're judging a minister, especially over a number of years, and of course, Lieberman wasn't with us, as you remember, in the beginning of the coalition that we started on the 61 MKs, which we have now. Look, there are a lot of things. There's some stuff he did that was good. Overall, like I said, 48,
not good.
Avigdor, 48 hours.
All right. I get the picture.
He is just not our guy.
So remember, that there is Netanyahu on top on Lieberman, and he is the one who takes the decision. So maybe we need a new prime minister. I definitely need.
Why did you stay in the coalition with Avigdor Lieberman 48 hours? Tell me. Why? I mean, if it was so bad, and if you didn't carry out the government policies, you should leave the government right away.
We decided to let Avigdor have some time. And
2.5 years?
More than 48 hours, isn't it?
Yvette promised us, if you remember, Yvette promised us after the 48-hour mark, he said, judge me by the end of my term. That's what he said in his first press conference after the 48 hours passed.
Let's judge him at the end. Let's judge him at the end of his term. Was he a good defense minister?
No, but reality is more complex than we think. I mean, he can. One thing that I remember is not only Hania, is when he spoke about Egypt and Iran, and then he has responsibility as a defense minister, and therefore your declarations is irrelevant. As I told you, in the opposition, they can say whatever they want. They don't have the responsibility.
There is responsible side and irresponsible side in this studio. We are representing the irresponsible side. That we are looking for a war, we are working to cross the border, and you take the serious measures.
Let me ask you this, Ksenia, let me ask you this. Naftali Bennett, the leader of the Jewish Home Party, a coalition member, who's now the education minister, wants to be the defense minister. Says if I don't get that portfolio, I will leave. Should he be the defense minister?
Well, first of all, we want the elections as soon as possible. Okay, this is first of all.
We're going to talk about that because I don't know why you want elections as soon as possible with your numbers.
But at least she agrees with Liberman on something.
Second of all, I think that I'm wishing Naftali Bennett a lot of luck, and actually I'm hoping that he will be a minister of defense. You know why? Because he will eat his hat, exactly like Avigdor Liberman did. Yes,
really?
Because he doesn't have any strategy, not on Gaza, not on anything else, and he will be in the same situation.
Okay, I'll let you react to that, actually.
First of all, you have a headline. We have the Zionist Union MK endorsing Bennett for defense minister. So I want to thank you for that.
I want him to go for it. At least he will in the education.
I know Naftali very well.
With Ksenia's endorsement. I would be careful.
Yeah, be careful with that. Okay, let him finish up.
Look, I'll tell you, I know Naftali. I know him really well. He's a really good guy. I know as someone who's also down in protective edge, like most of the kids that were my age, or whether in reserves or in regular service, and that is the type of person that you want to see. I know this from my experience. This is the type of people that a majority of the coalition voters want to see as defense ministers.
So you brought up the issue of elections. Two leading figures in the coalition, the finance minister Moshe Kaufman and the interior minister Aryeh Deri, met today with the prime minister and said it is time to go to the elections. It seems pretty inevitable.
And you know why?
What?
Because Kaufman has an empty treasury. The cashier is empty. No, he has no money for this year. So the best thing for him is to run for new elections. Because usually the Treasury Ministry come to this year with a package of benefits to the people of Israel. In this case, he's nothing to offer any longer.
I want to show you some polls yesterday from Hadashot TV that put out some, I think, disconcerting figures for your party, the Zionist Union. We can see that it's also a little disconcerting, I think, for your party as well. The Likud Prime Minister dips under 30 mandates for the first time, I think, in either 6 or 8 months. Eli, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. The Zionist Union there at 11 seats. You know what? And I want to show you another poll, by the way, that shows that if Benny Gantz, a former chief of staff, decides to join the race, it gets even worse for the Zionist Union, and he crushes the Zionist Union, takes from everybody, basically. 8 seats. I'm wondering, with you, Ksenia, why do you want to go to elections? And I'm wondering also, with both of you, isn't it time, maybe, that Avi Gabai, the leader of the party, hand the reins to someone else?
Well, I'll start with that I'll just say that as opposition, we are obliged to demand early election, and this is what we are doing since day one. Since day one, from the formation of this government, which we think it's extreme right and dangerous government to our country.
Will you be in the parliament?
You know, I'm not concerned about my seat, whether I will be there or not.
You should be with those numbers.
I'm thinking about the benefit of the country. I think right now this government is dangerous to Israel, and it will be also paralyzed.
Why are your numbers so bad, Nachman? Why are your numbers so bad?
Well, we need to look for a proper solution for that. I think we have many good ideas, and by the time we get to the real show, to the elections, there'll be some changes, political changes. It won't be the same. I assure you. I assure you, it won't be the same.
I can tell you, because they're irrelevant, and I'm not doing that because I'm a bad man. The left wing in Israel. Look at what's happened in Europe in general. The left wing is losing power.
Are we in Europe now, Eli?
Ellie?
No, but it reminds me very much of the same thing. No, it reminds me of the same things.
Let him finish.
It reminds me of the same story. They're irrelevant. Austria, Netherlands, other countries.
Speaking of relevant, well, I don't know. I want to show you another poll that was actually about how 74% of people are dissatisfied with how the Prime Minister, look at that, unsatisfied, 74%.
74.
74. Wow. Amazing.
Right.
You should be very, very, I think, I have a feeling, 29.
The blue wave is 17. The blue wave, 17.
You should be a little worried, shouldn't you?
We will deal with it. I believe he did the best thing for the state of Israel. Don't forget, only 4 years ago, the polls in Israel showed that the Zionist camp is going to win, and vice versa happens.
And then the Prime Minister went on that video and said the Arabs are
first of all, it was
coming
correct,
in their droves.
and then first of all, it was correct.
Why is it correct to say that?
It's completely lie.
It was not a lie. I can tell you things.
It was the beginning of fake news.
Why was it correct to say that?
You speak about fake news from the left wing in Israel. Arafat is a partner. Arafat is a partner. Socialism is great.
But
You speak about fake news.
About situation in Gaza, you speak about Rabin, Oslo.
I want to let Jeremy weigh in, but first I have to ask you about that.
20 years in power.
Does it matter if Arabs vote? So what if they were going to
They have
droves?
the right to vote. We have the right to say that we have the right to vote as well, and that's what Netanyahu did.
But they're citizens.
Of course
Why
they're citizens.
should there be a distinction?
Why? Because the leaders of the Arab joint list, they hate the state of Israel, the notion of the state of Israel, and therefore
the numbers were the same as every year, every election. They didn't vote more.
Okay, let's let Jeremy.
I mean, you started this part talking about a poll. The poll in which Zionist Union has 24 seats and they're down to 8. Or in the version without,
in the current parliament, they have 24. Yes.
The version without, so they would have, they'd have 11, the same as by UD, as you pointed out. That means over half of the current Zionist Union MKs would be going home, and by UD we would have more seats to fill for a bunch of newcomers. So I think that's very interesting that the opposition thinks that the result of this poll is that people are now supporting them. It's very clear that what's happening is actually there's a shift of support towards the right-wing coalition.
That's what I want to ask. That's what I want to ask you.
How the numbers?
I looked at the numbers.
One at a time?
Sorry, guys.
Okay, wait, Jeremy.
You saw what's happening in Sderot. You saw what's happening in Sderot. A delegation of left-wingers.
I want to let Nachman.
That's not what the people of Sderot are demonstrating night after night. Well, they are burning tires and calling for the government to take action. They realize that the government betrayed them. That's the point. They will be looking for an alternative.
But don't
I think the alternative is Naftali Bennett, because that is the person
wait a minute.
Hamas does
I
not
want to
want
ask
to see
Ksenia
as
a question
defense
before we go. I mean, don't these polls basically show with your number solo that the most right-wing government in Israel's history is actually not right-wing enough?
I think that there is actually no opportunity, no possibility at all that the right-wing government, any right-wing government, with Liberman, without Liberman, they will fulfill what they're promising to their people. They're promising to collapse Hamas, they're promising to raise Gaza. None of this will happen. So, yes, eventually they're getting, I don't know if you can call it left, but they're not getting what they were voting for. And I think people are starting to understand it.
You think, well, the polls don't exactly show that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm very skeptical about the polls.
This is a state of miracles, and a miracle happened, and all the terrible legislation that are now in the certain process in the Knesset will be stopped. So something important.
20 seconds. I will conclude by saying that it was a delegation of Meretz party into Sderot. You should see how the people react to them.
Okay.
With a lot of despise.
That is all the time we have. I'd like to thank my guests today, Ksenia Svetlova, Nachman Shai, Eli Hazan, and Jeremy Saltan. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today.